All right, we are back with another special edition for you. Our special guest is a world-renowned singer, musician, so much more in the band, the Word66. Please welcome Steve Scott.
Dave,
Steve.
thank you so much for having me on, buddy. I really appreciate
Well,
being here.
we love that connection, man, from NoHo to Sin City, Vegas to LA. It's quite the connection, you know. It's before they really open that 210, so you can take the 210 right up to the 15 and head up. You had to go all the way down to the 10 freeway. I don't know if you remember that, but literally you go to Vegas, the 210 out, Pasadena and Monrovia and San Bernardino, that was not open. So it's a godsend to have that straight shot, even though it's a 4 hour drive. We don't mind it early in the morning before
Yeah,
the sun is beaten down.
yeah. I used to once upon a time I used to live. I mentioned in California, and there were times where I'd get together with some friends, and we'd be headed out to the Strip, and then we just kind of look at each other and go, "Vegas," and then like 4.5 hours later, we were in Vegas. It took about
Yeah,
4 hours to lose all our money, and then 4 hours to drive back.
yeah. You're driving, you think you're going to conquer the world, you're going to put it all on black or red and walk away with a king's ransom, and then you're trying to figure out how to scrounge gas money to get home.
Yeah, to eat breakfast. Yeah. Luckily, at that time too, once upon a time, Vegas was really cheap. They
Oh
used to want
yeah.
people. They wants to get people to get in there, so they give you like steaks and
Oh,
and
$4
and eggs
four
for a
dollar
dollar
steak,
ninety
or
nine. And
yeah,
oh yeah,
99-cent shrimp cocktail, or
yes, yes.
circus, all that stuff. You just pull in, and they'd even have the billboards, stop here for a 2.99 steak and eggs.
Yep,
Or
yep.
yeah, that unfortunately is no longer.
That has been gone for many, many years.
You know, the I know the locals in Vegas kind of, cringe at the growth. I've known many a city in my life across America that becomes the hot spot. Next thing they know, their quaint little town off the strip is now inhabited by people that have raised their real estate prices. And gentrification has caused it where some locals can't even afford to live in the town they grew up in. How's that?
Yeah, very true. And not only that, but if you're a Vegas local too, you try to avoid that strip area at all costs if possible.
Oh yeah. Well, let's talk about your band, the Word66. I know you got a single, 37 Miracles. You
Yes.
got Danny Miranda on bass here, and you
Yes.
have Paul Crosby, former drummer of Saliva, in your band. Tell us how you put this unit together, and how the songs come up.
Well, Paul is actually he has a management company called PCM Management, which is Paul Crosby Management. So Paul is not actually in the band; he's our manager,
Okay.
actually. Danny Miranda, he is not. Well, you wouldn't say he's officially in the band, but he plays on all of our records. And we've known Danny for a while. We've grown up in the same area, and also it just so happens that my producer, who is helping us with all of our records, is a really good friend of Danny's, and he was the one that actually suggested Danny to play on the records. And he's like, "Hey, man, I think he'll really dig this. Let me send him the tracks and see what he thinks." And so, from a couple records ago, he sent them the tracks. He loved it, and he's been playing on our records ever since.
Well, that's exciting. Sounds like a great unit. How did you find this producer? Had you worked with him before, or somebody recommended him?
Yeah, we've done 3 records with him now, which is a total amount that we have so far. He was just recommended to me, and I heard some great things about him, read some great things about him, and actually met the guy. We got along really well, and we got into the studio, and it really worked. He's one of those guys too. His name is Vinny Castaldo, and he's just got this amazing ear for music, and he's really great at filling up the tracks as well with things that as when you record records, there's things sometimes that you can't pick up with the ear. unless you know it's there. So we throw those kind of things in there as well to kind of help fill the tracks up.
So now, where are you originally from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm a New Yorker.
I figured. What part? What borough?
I am from Long Island, actually. Or should I
Okay.
say Long Island? That's what people want me to say.
I know to those in, Manhattan or Brooklyn, Long Island is like a whole nother state. It is
It
north.
is.
It's
It
like
is.
a
I call
train
it the
ride.
civilized part of New York.
Yeah, it's crazy, if you're in the heart of the Big Apple and, trying to get a home or have a normal life, it is very, very difficult.
Yes. Living in the city is crazy. The amount of money you could pay for just like a studio.
Oh yeah, just to park your car. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Who wants to drive out there?
it's amazing. So
Hmm.
now in Long Island, did you used to go to shows? What was the arena called back there? I'm thinking of a famous
Um,
arena.
what was that called again? I'm just going blank.
God,
Uh,
what was it called? Um, Obviously,
oh
you
man,
had Madison Square Garden in the heart of,
Madison Square Garden.
well,
Yeah.
that's Manhattan. Is it,
Yes.
God, what was it? Veterans or
No.
War Memorial? No, what the hell was it called?
No, man. I don't know why it's escaping me. During the interview, all of a sudden, I'm just going to blurt it out and go, and I'm going to go, oh,
uh,
okay, yeah, that's right.
yeah, or I'll think of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would hear from people. Did bands would play in like Madison Square Garden, and then they would play at that arena. It was considered like a whole nother city.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a big place too. You could fit a lot of people in there. Why can't I remember the name?
Well, no question at all. Matter of fact, what was the first concert you saw, like major show that influenced you to kind of want to do this yourself?
Probably the band that influenced me the most, even today, it was Black Sabbath, actually.
Okay, Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum.
Nassau Coliseum, that's what it
Nassau.
is.
My
Yes.
gosh, how could we forget that?
I don't know.
So Sabbath, we talking early Sabbath or the Ronnie James Dio era?
We're talking Ozzy, back in
Okay.
the day. That was
So
definitely one of my first concerts, or my first concert, I believe, that I went to. And I was a huge Sabbath fan, and I'm still a huge Sabbath fan.
yeah,
Um,
Tony Iommi, was he a big influence?
oh yeah, Tony Iommi is, as far as I'm concerned, he's like the father of the power chord. You know, I mean, he's the guy that invented that. From what I understand, he's the first guy that ever did alternate tuning on the guitar as well.
Right. And if you know about Tony, he lost two of his fingertips
Yes,
in a factory accident.
yes.
That's how hardcore they were. Coming up in Birmingham, couldn't get more blue collar than working in the factory, and most of their friends probably lived there in life and died after they quit the factory. That was, pretty much their existence. But Tony and Terry, aka Geezer, and one Ozzy and Bill Ward, they went out on their own and they took a chance and overcame a lot of challenges. Now you didn't happen to see that famous tour in '78 where Van Halen opened for Sabbath, did you?
Trying to remember. Yeah, it might have been.
Well, you wouldn't forget it because Van Halen was like shot out of a cannon. They blew him off the
Right,
stage every night.
right.
Nothing against Tony, but they were coked out of their brains on by that point. They fired Ozzy at the end of the tour. That's when Ronnie James Dio came in. But they were no match for David Lee Roth and Edward and Alex Van Halen and Michael Anthony. Those guys were supercharged and sober, and I mean literally, like in
I knew.
30 minutes they played their entire first album. The lights came on, and you knew that there was nobody, including Sabbath, that could follow that.
Well, that's because Eddie, of course, had the technique, all the taps and the hammer-ons and all that kind of stuff. Nobody was familiar with that kind of stuff, so that was ear candy for everybody.
Oh
Everybody's
yeah,
like, "Wow, this Eddie Van Halen, he's the greatest guitarist in the world," kind of thing. So they really took the world by storm for sure.
yeah. He
But
was
I'll go with Sabbath, man, any day if I had to pick my choice of either one.
well. It's hard to compare him. It was two different eras, but Edward became great friends with Tony, and till Ed's passing, he considered Tony one of the Godfathers, one of his mentors. Matter of fact, before they chose the name Van Halen, they toyed with the name Rat Salad, which famously is the name of a Black Sabbath song. Aren't we glad Van Halen didn't end up being called Rat Salad?
Yeah, you can definitely do better than that.
But now I know what can you say about Striper? Was Striper an influence?
Wouldn't say they were an influence, but of course I was a big Striper fan.
Okay,
To be honest with you, man, I mean, I got into religion a bit later on in life. I didn't grow up with any kind of religion or anything.
okay.
So it was something I found later on. But I was a Sabbath, I mean, a Striper fan as well. And if you're not aware, I mean, Striper is still out there and they're still constantly recording new songs and new albums and touring. And the longevity of that band is pretty incredible.
What is it is pretty awesome. I mean, I moved here in '80 after visiting here for years. I grew up cross country around the world. I was in the Seattle, Vancouver market, '76 to mid '80, and then came down here. And I've been a promotion man for 50 years. So I was in the trenches promoting Motley Crue and Striper and Rat and Great White, and I mean you name it, before Poison moved out from Pennsylvania, and of course Guns N' Roses. Two of the main guys came out from Indiana. It was quite the scene, out here. I'm sure you know the glory days of the Sunset Strip in the
Oh,
80s.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just interviewed Ricky Rocket an hour ago from Poison. I
Oh, wow.
helped
Okay.
promote and launch those guys, but they literally drove like an ambulance, you know, truck from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, broke down in Arizona, limped into Southern California, and within a couple years, they just had a tenacity and an attitude that was just undeniable. Whether you love or hate their music, shit, they lit the world on fire, and it's great to see. And Ricky's doing a big tribute concert, a free show at Hollywood and Highland this Friday. He's very much involved in charities and helping kids and people. So it's great to see. Always when you can mix music with a message, do something from the heart. It's not just for the money. It always rings true. It always comes back to you. You know.
Yeah, this for me was a calling. So writing this music, it's not only a labor of love, but it's for love of God and love of Christ. And so when we write the music, or I should say, when I write the music, I mean it's always a labor of love, and it's I like to throw some scripture in there sometimes, and we've always got a positive message, and that's what it's all about for us and for me.
Well, I know with your song 37 Miracles, you have a lyric video out. There's a quote here from the band. 37 Miracles is a song emphasizing a message of hope, faith, peace, kindness, and unconditional love, neatly wrapped in a bow of metal goodness. So, yeah, you don't have to hit them over the head with it. You got some great music. All of a sudden, the feeling, the lyrics, it's going to kind of soak in, and it's
Yeah,
the best way. I mean,
yeah, for sure. And I got to tell you, man, there definitely are some people out there that really don't dig what we do. There's a lot of places that like will play us, and the new song, 37 Miracles. If a lot of people don't know this, and even the Christians don't know this as well, is that it was written because Jesus performed in his lifetime a total of 37 miracles. And that's where the song title comes from. It's a title track of the new EP as well. And in the song, we list about 15 of his miracles.
Well, that's great. I mean, I know people are responding to your music. We love, the energy that you put out there. What's the plan to take it to the road? Do you have any tour dates or any plans to bring it to California or Texas or the Midwest or back to the East Coast? Anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more toward the end of the year. We don't actually have anything planned yet, to be honest with you, but we'll be talking to our manager, Paul, about that shortly, and we will be figuring that stuff out.
Well, we've seen the rebirth of Creed in the last year. They went away for a bit. Now they're back with a vengeance. And of course, they've got the Creed cruise. They're doing their big summer. What do they call it? The summer of '99, I believe, is their tour where they have a lot of those bands, from the '90s out there on the road. And people love nostalgia. People love the music they grew up with. What do you think it was about those eras, like the '70s and '80s, that has produced such timeless music that people still today reach back as, instant comfort to remind them of those simpler times growing up before all this technology and everything?
Music is so powerful. It really it can take you back to a certain place. It can take you back to a certain memory of things as well. And I think that's part of it. I think people had certain things that they cherish and remember these memories, and they'll hear a song and it will trigger those memories, and they're like, oh yeah, that song reminds me of this or reminds me of that. um, that's something that'll always be there. And I would have to say that the 80s was probably the greatest era for music, in my opinion.
What year did you graduate high school?
Oh boy, we're asking these questions, huh?
I'm just curious. I graduated in '76, so
Okay,
as much as
87
I
for
love the
me.
'80s, the
Uh-huh.
'70s, the '70s was my decade. So
Okay.
you're probably a few years younger. I was just curious, early '80s or
Yeah,
whenever you graduated.
87. Yeah.
87. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's naturally, that would be kind of like me in '76, you in '87.
Right.
That was our decade. It's so much of that music that we grew up with in high school and as an early adult beyond high school that is our formative music that is kind of the blueprint, no
Right.
matter what music we've heard since or new music you make or you hear. When it's great, it reminds you of those eras.
So what were some of your favorite bands in the 70s?
Well, too many to mention, but I would say Beatles, Stones, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Pink Floyd, Motown. I love soulful music. I love what Zeppelin did, bringing us from the '60s into the '70s, and then just escapism. Coming up with the Beatles, and of course the Stones have transversed literally every decade. But then Pink Floyd, with Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here and Animals and The Wall. Um, it was just groundbreaking music. So
Animals is my favorite Pink Floyd album.
yeah, it was
Love
that
Animals.
was amazing. I was in the Vancouver area when that came out, and you just put it on, and it's impossible to listen to one track. You had to listen to the whole album,
Yeah,
and
it's a
then you
journey.
and then you usually hit repeat. The Wish You Were
Yes.
Here album came out when I was graduating high school in Panama, Central America, and I'll never forget the night that I was turned on to Wish You Were Here. It was like an experience.
Right.
You know, Welcome to the Machine, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I mean, it
Down
was
on You Crazy Diamond, the guitar playing of Gilmore.
wow.
It's fantastic. Just
Yeah, I was
fantastic.
at Gilmore's recent shows here at the Hollywood Bowl. He just played New York and LA. That was it. He's not a fan of touring, but he played like 5 nights here in LA. and just going down to hang out with all the Pink Floyd fans. I interviewed people from all over the world. People like, yeah, I came from India. I'm here from Germany. I'm here from Brazil. I came all the way from Australia for this. It's like, wow. You
Yeah.
know, David, rather than tour the world, he made the world come to him.
Yes. Absolutely. And deservedly so.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to compare his guitar style to anybody else. It's so unique,
Yeah.
so atmospheric,
Yes.
so larger than life.
Yes.
It's pretty phenomenal. But we want to
He's
encourage. Go ahead.
I'm just saying I consider him to be one of the tastiest rock
Oh
guitarists
yeah. Oh,
ever.
when you mention a Tony Iommi, you mention
Yeah.
a David Gilmour, and you
Yes.
mention a Jeff Beck. You mention
Yes.
some of these guys. They'll prob they're often copied, but never equaled.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
see
I
10
agree
year
with
old
you.
you see 10-year-old kids on YouTube, copying one of the greats, and it's like, oh, that's great, but let me hear an original. Let me hear your sound.
Right.
That is the hard one. But we want to
Yes.
encourage everyone to go get 37 Miracles. It is the new album by the WORD66. We've been having a great time with the main man. He is Steve Scott, and of course your bandmates here, Carlos Zima, Lance Crane, special guest bassist Danny Miranda. So until we speak again, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all.
It was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, anybody who's listening to this, please check us out. If you're not necessarily religious, it's just dig the music, man. Just put it on. You don't have to listen to the lyrics. And you'll just, like I said, you just dig the music. And we have a new vocalist, and hopefully you'll like the stuff that Brian did previous to that as well.